Hi everyone, welcome to Lifewealth's first ever podcast. We had grand visions of having an extraordinary name that would be really engaging for everyone. We haven't been able to come up with one yet, so we'll try and do that over the coming weeks. I firstly want to introduce James Vanderloo and obviously myself, Jason Harwood. So James, obviously you and I have known each other for a long period of time. We've worked together for 13 plus years. Time flies when you're having fun is what they say. And obviously for many of our clients listening to this podcast, they would know either you individually, myself, us as a group, other members of the Lifewealth family. But for those people who are sort of hearing from Lifewealth for the first time, it probably makes sense to introduce who we are and what we do and the kind of clients we work with, so they've got a sort of background to who Lifewealth is.
Thanks, Jason. Obviously, Lifewealth, we've been here 22 years now, which is a pretty good story in itself. Primarily, accounting and financial planning have been our bread and butter. That's also expanding now into digital, which we'll talk a little bit more about together later. So what type of clients do we help with their accounting and planning needs? So businesses and business people. We have a range of clients in that space, from startup companies where they need lots of help on the accounting and setup side, all the way to very successful businesses and clients with over 100 million in net worth. For those clients, clearly it is probably taking some money off the table and being a little bit more passive with what they've got while their business is doing so well. Retirees. With retirees, a lot of what we do is objective-based strategies. Why? Because they've got particular cash flow objectives and retirement income objectives that they need a portfolio to meet. We have a gentleman that's an aged care and social security specialist, so people that need help with that part of their life have somebody they can turn to because it can be quite tricky. Clearly, we do a wide range of accounting services, from very simple compliance and returns right through to business consulting. We work with everyday families that are planning for their own retirement. So they may have objectives about lifestyle and where they want to be, so we can help them with that. We have a division that looks after quite a few very high-profile professional athletes and entertainers. Clients in that circumstance clearly have a unique set of problems. They've got very high incomes at quite a young age, so they've got lots of big decisions to make very early in life. So to give them some guidance around that, make sure we're setting themselves up for the next phase of their life is actually something that's really important and rewarding. We've got an insurance division to make sure we're protecting families and businesses. We're managing in excess of $500 million for individual clients, and clearly that gives us quite a bit of reach and insights to meet interesting people. So whether that be fund managers, stockbrokers, economists, equity strategists, asset consultants, it means we're talking to some really smart people every day. And a really good example of that is just this morning we had an update from a private equity opportunity. That strategy is headed by a gentleman named Jamie Odell. Jamie used to run Aristocrat Leisure, which is a listed company. He was the CEO of that business and took over when the share price was $3 and took it all the way up to $25 before he resigned about 2 years ago. And now he's in this private equity space trying to do the same thing with unlisted businesses. So we do get some terrific insights. That's really what we do. And Jason, digital is quite new for us, so I might throw back to you to explain a little bit more about that.
Yeah, that's great. I know you referred to that earlier. I guess as we've grown, particularly over the last few years, we've had to look at where the opportunities were in the market and where the challenges were in the market for us as a business to look after our clients. And the accounting space, we really wanted to deepen the capability we had in business advisory, if you like, particularly in that startup type business. Additionally, we looked at the sort of big four, big five accounting firms and realised they were really starting to roll out digital divisions, whether that be support around websites, CRM systems, any type of system to support the business. And we realised we probably needed to find some solution in that space ourselves. So, we've worked really hard over the last couple of years to identify how we could, fill that out. And we've brought in Mark Abbott into accounting and Robert Nissi into digital, and their skill set. We're really excited about what that delivers for all our existing clients and for those clients that we hope to attract in the future as well. So it's a really exciting time for us as a business. It's a really exciting time for us as individuals, but we see it as being a really exciting time for our clients.
Absolutely, and the one thing I've noticed by looking at that is the huge difference in cost a firm like ours can afford to charge compared to the big four with their huge overhead. So it's going to be really exciting.
Yeah, without a doubt. So we want to take this chance in this first podcast to talk about why we've decided to actually put a podcast, out into the world. Feels like every man and his dog has a podcast right now. So at first we were mindful of should we be putting another one out there, but we realised there was a real opportunity for us to find another way to communicate with our clients and those people we hold close to the business. So James, I know you were pretty keen to put a podcast out into the market.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think it's a really good way to communicate quickly to our clients some of the ideas that are coming across our desk, what we're thinking and what we're seeing. So it's a good way to hear our voice more regularly than via our regular review program. And personally, I've found some of the podcasts really, really valuable. So we think we can add to your experience.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. If I think about being in the office on a daily basis and seeing you at your desk, I mean, we know that for those who don't know, listen to the podcast, James is a voracious reader and almost inhaler of information, which is really important as the head of our investment committee. And it's pretty common to see you sitting at your desk with earphones in, working away, listening to podcasts. Well, that's what you tell me you're doing, so I'm assuming that's what you're doing.
No, that's exactly right. And really, some of those people that we're getting insights, whether it be economics, finance, investors, we hope to get some of those people on as guests so we can actually share their thought process, which is coming into the business directly with you, our clients.
Yeah, fantastic. And so the reality of today and this particular episode, we don't necessarily plan to go into the sort of content we're going to go into the future. We really saw this as an opportunity to make the introduction of Lifewealth's podcast. We think there's some topics that we're definitely going to want to cover over the coming weeks, but we didn't necessarily want to hit all of those in the first podcast. I think there is some things we'll probably cover off today. As James said, we're really keen to bring ideas to clients from great minds. We actually intend to have guests coming in on the podcast, but also it's just a really good opportunity for us to get sort of real-time information out to our clients about what's happening on world markets.
Absolutely. And some of the things that I think we can do in the next few weeks is, firstly, the financial year has come to an end. So, and we're at the halfway mark of the calendar year. So just a little bit of a roundup of what's happened over the last 6 months, which, if we go back to Christmas time, has been almost the exact opposite of what all the finance wizards predicted. So we'll do a bit of a roundup and obviously have a look at the outlook for the second half of the year as well, because I think there's some things that have really changed in the world from where people's minds were positioned around Christmas time. So it's certainly been a year of change. So I think that's really important. We'll have a brief look at the big economies in the world, obviously what's happening with the US, China, with the trade story, what's going on there. The United States of Europe, it just keeps dragging on, the whole Brexit scenario. So where things are at there. And of course, here in Australia, after a federal election where, again, nobody all picked a coalition win. So what does that mean for us over the next year or two? The biggest thing really was the change of expectation in interest rates. From everybody worried about cost of capital rising last year in the US, when the market started wobbling in December, the Fed flipped. And interest rate expectations have absolutely rolled over. Bonds have had a ripping 6 months. Here in Australia, the interest rates have been cut by 50 basis points only in the last 2 months. So really, a lot of the assumptions people were making have been turned on their head. So that's a huge one. The property market, that certainly impacts the property market. You had expectations of labour coming in, of negative gearing being repealed or grandfathered, credit was getting tight, and all of that has really flipped since the election. So it'll be really, really interesting to see if we don't find a base this springtime, which is probably going to be good for confidence in the economy.
So, James, we've come to the end of our first podcast, which is great. Clearly, we have no idea whether anyone's actually going to listen to this podcast or not.
I know my mum will definitely listen. I think she's a paying client.
Okay, well, that's a win for us then. We've got at least one person listening. We've got our sound editor here who's also recording, who's been listening the whole way through, so we're up to 2 apart from ourselves. So that's quite the win. Look, I know we were really looking forward to recording this podcast. We're really looking forward to how we get this out more regularly and able to touch on these topics, as we said, more consistently and more quickly as they happen. So hopefully we can aim to have somewhere between 4 and 10 people listen to the second podcast, and we'll just keep growing from there as we roll out through 3, 4 and 5. Thanks everyone for listening, and we look forward to talking with you again soon.
Thank you guys. We've got some really exciting content that we look forward to bringing to you over the next few weeks.